The first time she heard them discussing how to force a single father out of his job, Elena Mercer thought she had misheard. Rain hammered against the metal roof of the distribution center outside Cleveland, turning the loading yard into a sea of reflections and shadows. Hidden behind a row of stacked freight containers, dressed in a stained work jacket and steel-toe boots, she listened as 3 supervisors laughed about a man named Ryan Carter and his young daughter. Their voices carried easily through the cold night air. He won't last another month. Not with the kids slowing him down. Eventually he'll quit on his own. Elena's joy tightened. For most people working in the warehouse, she was simply Emma Reed, a temporary employee assigned to the night shift. No one knew she was actually the CEO of Mercer Logistics, one of the largest freight companies in the country. Her late grandfather had created a tradition decades earlier. Every few months, a family executive would disappear into the company under a false identity and work among ordinary employees. Reports could be manipulated. Numbers could be hidden. But people spoke honestly when they believed nobody important was listening. Over the previous year, several anonymous complaints had come from the Cleveland branch. Every investigation had supposedly been completed. Every complaint had been marked resolved, yet the complaints never stopped. That was why Elena was standing in a freezing warehouse at midnight instead of attending executive dinners in Manhattan. And that was why she had noticed Ryan Carter. From the moment she arrived, he stood out. Not because he demanded attention. Because he never did. While others complained about overtime, Ryan worked. While others searched for shortcuts, Ryan quietly solved problems. He moved with the calm efficiency of someone who understood exactly how much energy every task required. He never wasted motion. He never wasted words. On Elena's second night, she had wrapped a shipment incorrectly. The plastic film bunched around the corner. Ryan had stopped beside her. "You're fighting the wrap." She looked up. "What?" The tension. He gently took the roll from her hands. "Start low. Lock the corners first." His movements were smooth and practiced. 3 turns. 1 pull. 1 step. The load suddenly looked perfect. He handed the roll back. "There. Thanks. No problem." Then he simply walked away. No lecture. No showing off. No attempt to impress her. Later that evening, she saw him answer a phone call. His entire face changed. The hard edges disappeared. His voice softened immediately. "Hey, sweetheart." A smile appeared. "Of course I'll be there." A pause. "No, I wouldn't miss it." Another pause. "I love you too." Elena pretended to organize inventory sheets while listening. The conversation lasted less than a minute. But she learned everything she needed to know. Ryan Carter's entire world existed on the other end of that phone. A little girl. His daughter. Minutes later, a supervisor named Victor Barnes walked by. "Leaving early again, Carter?" Ryan said nothing. "The princess needs her daddy?" Still nothing. Ryan simply picked up another pallet and continued working. Elena watched him carefully. Most people would have reacted. Most people would have argued. Most people would have snapped. Ryan didn't. It wasn't weakness. It was discipline. The kind of discipline that came from surviving things worse than insults. That night, after returning to her apartment, Elena opened company records. Ryan's employee file was nearly spotless. No complaints. No disciplinary history. Perfect attendance. 3 separate requests to transfer to a daytime schedule. All denied. Each denial carried the same signature. Victor Barnes. The wording was identical every time. Operational necessity. Operational necessity. Operational necessity. The phrase felt copied and pasted. Elena kept digging. Then she found something unusual. Much of Ryan's previous employment history had been restricted. Military records. Special operations background. Decorated combat veteran. Several commendations. A Bronze Star, multiple deployments. She stared at the screen. The quiet warehouse worker helping strangers wrap pallets had once led soldiers in combat zones halfway around the world. A message from an old government contact confirmed it. 1 sentence. He earned every medal the hard way. Respect the silence he keeps. Elena sat quietly for several minutes. The rain tapped against the windows. She remembered the bandage on Ryan's hand, the worn work boots, the faded wedding ring he still wore despite being widowed. Nothing about him matched the records she was reading. He never mentioned any of it. The next evening, disaster nearly struck. A poorly secured freight stack began tipping from an upper storage rack. Most employees never noticed. A young worker named Hannah stood directly underneath. Elena saw the danger, but before she could shout, Ryan moved. 3 steps. 1 reach. He grabbed Hannah and pulled her clear. The heavy load crashed toward him. He absorbed the impact against his shoulder and redirected the weight back toward the support structure. The entire warehouse froze. The crate settled safely. Silence filled the building. Ryan dusted off his sleeve. "You okay?" Hannah nodded shakily. "Good." Then he pointed toward the rack. "That needs to be rest-wrapped." And walked away. No heroics. No celebration. No dramatic speech. Just another problem solved. At lunch break, Elena sat across from him beneath a covered loading dock. Rain fell steadily beyond them. Ryan unwrapped a sandwich. Neither spoke for several minutes. Eventually, he pulled an apple from a paper bag, cut it in half, handed her the larger piece. "You skipped lunch." She laughed. "How can you tell? You haven't touched anything." The answer was simple. Matter of fact. Kind. She accepted the apple. For the first time in years, Elena found herself unsure what to say. Most people wanted something from her. Money. Influence. Opportunity. Ryan wanted nothing. He treated her exactly like everyone else. That honesty was strangely rare. A few days later, Victor finally made his move. Ryan was called into a small office. A disciplinary warning waited on the desk. Accusations. Attendance issues. Policy violations. Every claim was false. Elena watched through the glass wall. A witness sat nearby. A nervous administrator named Sarah. She clearly knew the report was fabricated. Tears filled her eyes. But she signed anyway. Ryan read the paperwork. Looked at Sarah. Then signed his own name without argument. Without anger. Without humiliation. When he walked back onto the warehouse floor, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fury. Real fury. That afternoon she followed a lead. At a local elementary school, she sat in her car across the street. A student recital was beginning. Ryan's daughter, Lily, stepped onto a stage. Tiny. Nervous. Brave. She began singing. 3 minutes later, Ryan appeared at the back of the auditorium. Still wearing work clothes. Still dusty from the warehouse. Lily spotted him instantly. Her smile brightened. Yet she never missed a note. Elena drove away before the performance ended. Some moments belonged only to families. She refused to steal that one. Back home, she worked through the night. The deeper she investigated, the uglier the truth became. 14 employees had been forced out during Victor's leadership. Most were single parents. Several cared for elderly relatives. A few were military veterans. Every termination followed the same pattern. Minor infractions. Questionable paperwork. Invented performance concerns. The pattern was obvious. Victor targeted vulnerable employees because they were easier to control. By dawn, Elena had enough evidence to begin dismantling his entire operation. But then another employee approached her. An older worker named Frank Mitchell. A Vietnam veteran. He studied her carefully. "You're not really a temp worker." Elena froze. Frank smiled slightly. "Relax." He sipped his coffee. "I don't care who you are." Then he leaned forward. "I care why you're here." After hearing Victor's name, Frank nodded. "Then we're on the same side." What he told her next changed everything. Years earlier, during a family emergency, Ryan had driven him through a brutal snowstorm to reach his injured grandson. 9 hours on dangerous roads. Without complaint. Without hesitation. Ryan had even secretly given him money afterward. Frank's voice shook slightly. "Best man I ever served with." Elena listened quietly. "He doesn't fight for himself," Frank continued. "He fights for everyone else." The old veteran stared into his coffee. "And people like Victor know that." Silence settled between them. Finally, Frank looked up. "I don't know how to stop this." Elena slowly wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. For the first time since arriving in Cleveland, she knew exactly what she needed to do. Victor Barnes believed nobody important was watching. He believed the people he hurt were invisible. He believed power belonged to him. He was wrong. Because the woman standing across the warehouse floor wasn't Emma Reed. She was Elena Mercer. And she wasn't leaving until every single person responsible answered for what they had done.